Alright children, welcome to Macroeconomics with your new favorite teacher, me, Mr. Fritz. Today I'm going to be starting off by teaching you about the production possibility curve and opportunity costs. Alright, first of all, the basic idea behind the production possibility curve is that it is a graph that shows trade-offs. It's showing our opportunity cost for producing one good or another. Opportunity cost is the value of the next best thing you could have done when you're making an economic decision. So this is a country that is going to be either producing consumer goods or capital goods. Consumer goods being things like food and clothing and shoes and electronics that you use in your house, like a DVD player or something. Capital goods are going to be manufacturing goods, things that you buy in order to be able to produce more stuff in the future. So like factory equipment, tractors, stuff like that, things that allow you to produce more consumer goods in the future. So this economy is choosing some combination of the two goods, somewhere between here. If we were producing nothing but capital goods, our opportunity cost would be consumer goods. We just wouldn't be making consumer goods. It would be all the consumer goods that we're no longer making. If we produce nothing but consumer goods, well then our opportunity cost is going to be all the capital goods that we're missing out on making. So your opportunity cost is essentially just whatever you're foregoing. So there's three important points here. The first would be point A. Point A represents a possibility or a combination of consumer and capital goods that is an efficient use of resources. That point right there does not have to be the only place that it could be. That could be all the way here. It could be just making nothing but consumer goods. That would still be an efficient use of resources. Oops, I erased. Or we could be making nothing but capital goods, and again, that would still be an efficient use of resources. So this represents full employment output, making your full potential. You're not wasting any resources. You don't have machines sitting around not being used. You don't have people out of work, unemployed, sitting at home. All right, this next point, point B, represents an inefficient use of resources. This is unemployment. This would be a recession. This is an economy that has gone into recession. In fact, I'll write it right there. This is an economy that's gone into a recession, and they are experiencing high unemployment. Not good in there. So maybe this point represents we could be making 20 units of consumer goods and 10 units of capital goods. This would be 10 and 10. We are not using all of our potential. We've got either machinery sitting around not being used or resources going to waste like labor, people sitting at home not doing jobs, or like plants rotting in the field. This is an inefficient use of resources. Point C is an impossible point of production. Based on what we have available to us right now, like the amount of resources, the amount of people, the amount of capital goods, so like factory equipment and machines and stuff like that, this, as of now, is impossible. You can't produce that much stuff. You just can't. So again, if this represents 15 consumer goods and 10 capital goods, this would be 10 and 10, and this would be like 30 and 30. It's not actually possible based on our current production. Alright, now, the whole reason that this curve is bowed outward like this and it bends back in on itself is because it's showing that there is a increasing opportunity cost associated with these two goods. Consumer goods and capital goods aren't necessarily made out of the same exact things. Consumer goods, again, are going to be things like food and clothing and stuff, whereas capital goods might be machinery. So let's say that the consumer goods are actually like PlayStations, and the capital goods are robots that make cars. Not exactly made out of the same things. Robots that make cars have a lot more metal involved. These are probably a lot quicker to make. PlayStations are easier to make, I would assume, than a robot that produces a car. Okay, so because of that, the more and more consumer goods that we add, the greater and greater capital goods that we eventually need to give up. So let's say again, I was talking before, this is 15 consumer goods and 10 capital goods. After we add that 11th consumer good, we might be down to 8 capital goods, but then that 12th consumer good is going to cost us 3 capital goods, and we're down to 5 capital goods. There's an increasing opportunity cost associated with the production of either of these goods. The increasing opportunity cost goes both ways on the graph. So the production possibility curve can shift outward. Before I told you that there was an impossible or infeasible point of production on that graph, well now we might be able to actually get out to that previously impossible point of production. This is showing economic growth. This is an economy that is growing. This could be due to a few different reasons. There could be an increase in the amount of capital goods. If we have more machines and more factories, well then in the future we'll be able to make more stuff. This could also be an increase in human capital. Human capital is education, either like college education, high school education, or even like tech schools and things like that. Schools that teach you how to do a job. So if we increase the amount of people that are getting educated in our society, well those people have increased the amount of stuff that they could make in their lifetime, and the production possibility curve will shift outward to the right. This could also be an influx of immigrants. This could represent people moving into the country. If we have more people, then we have more people available to do work, and we'll be able to increase the amount of stuff that we could produce in the future. This could also be an increase in access to resources. Maybe now we have like new land that we previously didn't know. Maybe we discovered oil in Arizona, and now there's an increase in our production possibility curve because resources that we previously didn't have access to, we now have more of. We could also have a decrease in the production possibility curve. So the curve could shift into the left, and now we wouldn't be able to make as much stuff as we used to. Some of the things that cause a shift to the left or a shift inward of the production possibility curve would be things like immigration, people leaving the country. If you don't have as many people anymore, then you can't make as much stuff. On top of that, we could also have war. Same idea. Your people are probably going to be fleeing the country. Factories might be getting bombed, and unfortunately, people might be dying as well. That all leads to a decrease in the amount of stuff that you can produce. Another thing that could cause a production possibility curve to shift inward to the left would be like a natural disaster. So if a hurricane hit an area or a country, they would have a shift to the left of their production possibility curve because capital and things like that would probably get destroyed. So you probably wouldn't have as many factories and stuff like that after the natural disaster. And that's not even counting like people that might be dying and things like that. All right, I'd like to talk about the business cycle real quick. This is the business cycle. Basically, the way you need to think about the business cycle is that this is our GDP, our gross domestic product, the amount of stuff that we produce in our country in a given year. As you'll see, over time, the gross domestic product is increasing, and it's been increasing. And it's pretty much always going to be increasing. However, from time to time, there is either a point where we're outpacing our potential GDP or where we're not meeting our potential GDP. And so you would be in an expansion when things are going better than was expected, and you're in a recession when things are going worse than expected. So for the peak, think about that as being the last good day before the recession hit and everything started doing terribly and the economy slowed down. The trough is the last bad day before the expansion started and the economy started recovering. During a recession, things to keep in mind, during a recession, you're going to have high unemployment and low inflation. Prices tend to come down, or inflation, and unemployment tends to go up. People lose their job during a recession. In an expansion, it's the opposite. The GDP is going back up. The economy is recovering. As production, think of GDP as being production, things being made. As production increases, unemployment is going to decrease. People will get their jobs back. However, now that everybody has a job, everybody's buying things, and prices are going to be going back up. So this is our business cycle. Make sure that you learn it and remember it. Goodbye, children.